Hello, everyone, and welcome back to From the Depths with me, Cargo. In this episode, we got some stuff going on, but first we have a Kongor that has spawned. A big old mean Kongor. So we're gonna go over here, we're gonna release the hounds, and we're gonna get right into it. Now, first off, I love how these things, the new Bloodhounds, Tokyo Drift in a line. It's amazing. See, yeah, look at that. I don't know exactly what's making them Tokyo Drift. They overcorrect a little bit on their yaw, so they do kind of wiggle waggle back and forth pretty consistently, but I just love that they actually line up to Tokyo Drift towards an opponent. Something about that's very satisfying. We're of course up against the Kongor. This is a fairly large Deepwater Guard airship. It's not very well protected, but it carries a lot of firepower. I don't think it's ever going to get anywhere near close enough to hurt us, and oh my god, it's dead already. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that Kongor costs more than the tanks, so for it to be completely hollowed out is quite something. Now, a little while later, you might be sitting there thinking, Cargo, what happened to this poor boat? Why didn't we get to see it? Well, the answer is this thing spawned in about 3 seconds ago. Of course, I was building on the internals of my craft, and the load-in lag spawned, so I paused the game, come up here to take a look at it. Bloodhounds are already deployed, and the opening volley capped both of the turrets. Both of them. So, yeah, you know, I guess that's a pretty good example of why you should heft-proof your guns. It's also a pretty good example of exactly what these Bloodhounds are capable of. So they have rapid fire and intentionally inaccurate APS shells so that they coat a target in Hesh so that they can quickly, you know, anything that is vulnerable to Hesh, they can hit that. By having 4 hover tanks, they're targeting 4 different locations, and by having base bleeders on these Hesh shells, they're also inaccurate. So the end result is the enemy craft gets like wonderfully coated in a shotgun of Hesh shells. And why are you running into each other? Don't think I didn't see that. I saw that. It'd be really nice if you weren't running into each other. Gonna have to pull those back, get them airborne. One of the things that I really love about the sub-vehicle deployments is just because they go down does not mean that they're out. Like right now, all their weapon systems are still online, and their missile interceptors are still online. And I just have to pull them back for like 3 or 4 seconds to get their propulsion back online, and then I can let them go again. The thing is pathfinding to come into a broadside range with me. It's just using its secondary weapons to fight the other craft. And surprisingly, it's doing pretty well. You know, I gotta give this thing props for how long it has held on. That secondary APS, well, I say that it's gone now, but that secondary APS hung in there for quite a while. It did technically managed to down 2 Bloodhounds, albeit that's because they ran into each other. Gonna have to change the altitude on these things so that they won't do that anymore. But you know, he's the first thing to take down to technically down any of the Bloodhounds. So yeah, props to the Steel Striders. Don't ask me what that was. I don't know. Anyway, this thing spawned in, and I'm pretty sure this is the Steel Strider's Hake. And this is a really cool fighter. It doesn't really stand any chance. I'm pretty sure our missiles can all hit this. What's kind of cool about this thing is it is fairly difficult to hit. You need missiles with signal processors and APN guidance. Pretty strong APN guidance as well. It's also very fast, so it helps to have faster missiles. Now, thankfully, that's quite literally exactly what we have. Our missiles are all as fast as I could make them with signal processors and APN guidance. So yeah, this thing, it's a cool little design. It's a little countered. So there's no way it survives a single missile volley. But yeah, it's a beautiful plane, and if you don't have high tracking weapons or things with the capability to hit this thing, it can definitely be a real struggle. Oh my god, it got dusted. Actually dusted. Rip. Oh my god, what are you? It's a hover tank. I love it already. It is the Grey Talon's flail. Alright, well, hover tank v hover tank. Let's go. Make sure to detach our camera. I really like the look of this thing. Oh! Oh, it is not HESH protected at all! Oh, wow! Okay, so I hit an engine, at least, and an AI compartment. I'm looking for blocks to anything else. That was only 1 or 2 APS shots. Did the engine really explode that violently? I didn't think engines exploded that violently. I knew they could kind of chain a little bit, but where did we hit it? There's not even an entry hole. Okay, so the AI was right here. There's an ammo store. The ammo store is intact. We shot past the ammo store and blew out the entire engine and AI compartment. How did we even? How did? There's an ammo store right here. I actually cannot believe that. We must have hit like directly right here and just blew out the engine. Oh, that is absurd. That is actually absurd. Anyway, I guess it's time to dock everything back. In case anyone is curious, I've set up the AI on my main craft to be a resource gathering craft because it's hard to see the resource nodes, and this thing doesn't exactly need to broadside or be at a specific range. It quite literally just releases the hounds and then they do all the fighting for it. So by setting it up on resource collects, it can just auto path towards the next resource zone while I continue to build, and that's helped me out a lot. I also have put some resource collectors up in the Citadel. I really like the resource buoys, but the problem that I keep running into is that there's zones with like 800 resources in them total. And the resource buoys are really only useful if the zone has a couple thousand. Ideally, what I do with them is leave them at a resource zone and then go do other stuff. Evasive maneuvers, or onto the next resource zone, or closing distance on a craft, or even just moving to make sure that more stuff keeps spawning, because that's how stuff spawns in the adventure mode, is based on your craft moving and time passing. So they definitely have a use, but for small resource zones that don't have very much in them, it's not really worth like building them and then leaving them there and then docking them and then dismantling them. But yeah, here we are. Something else has spawned in, and it's the Caspian. Now I love this craft for a number of reasons. The first is I love how it fights, and the second is it's a reference to something in real life. This is a reference to the Russian special project, the Caspian, and it's a really cool plane. Without getting too nerdy about the physics, basically the idea behind this was it would fly really, really close to the ocean, and that way when it created a high pressure zone underneath the wings, which is how wings work, they create a low pressure zone above the wing and a higher pressure zone below the wing, so the plane gets lifted up, gets pulled up and pushed up at the same time. The idea behind this thing was to fly so close to the ground, or the water, that the air didn't have a place to vacate, so the pressure would be much, much higher. So the idea was for this to be a cargo plane that flew basically across the surface of the water. Now, it ended up being a really terrible idea, but But this thing is really cool, and it's a reference to that Russian special project. It's also a really, really nasty laser craft that's very, very fast, and I love the look of the stuff. The lightning hood's not my biggest style. I'm not the biggest laser nerd. I know that my ship is currently green and black with a powerful laser on it, but that's kind of beside the point. It's not a lightning hood's craft, I swear. It is not trying to be one either. Oh man. But yeah, no. The Caspian is a really cool looking plane. I think our missiles should be able to hit it though. So I'm not sure about our APS, honestly, because it stays kind of far away. It's gonna depend. So if this thing tries to gap close on the main carrier and it lets the Bloodhounds get close, then it's going down. Whereas if it does target one of the Bloodhounds and it manages to keep its distance, it could probably stay alive for a little while, but I'm looking at this missile volley and just thinking that it's only a matter of time. Ooh, yeah, it just lost a wing. Yeah, maybe one more missile volley depending on where it hits, maybe two. Maybe two. But those APS are connecting. And it looks like it is fighting the main carrier. Yeah, I know. Unfortunate for the Caspian. It is not going to win this one. It's sure going to try. Its munition nodes are not... laser anti-munition defense is not strong enough to shoot down those missiles. They do have a reinforced body on each of them. So, yeah. Rip Caspian. You know, it's a shame that night is so dark, but that looks epic. It honestly looks like a Star Wars fight. Oh, man. And there she goes. Rip Caspian. On to the next fight, and we're looking at a bit of a Steel Strider's boat. Now, this is another early game Steel Strider's craft. I love the little life rings, and I love the little lifeboats and the dinghies in the back. All of the cosmetic things when it comes to the Steel Striders are phenomenal. The shaping of this boat is looking a little border-wise, but other than that, this thing looks amazing. I wonder if that's a giant... I wonder if that thing at the top is a mimicked ECM jammer, or if it's a bunch of mimicked metal poles that just looks like an ECM jammer. But anyway, it's still definitely under the weight class. I've been experimenting just sending 1 or 2 tanks at most of the craft I've fought today. The last couple of fights have been a bunch of small things, so I'm just going to let everything loose, and isn't that beautiful? Man. I gotta say, I'm a really big fan of the faster firing, inaccurate APS shells. So I think I'm going to integrate that onto the next tank. And it's probably time to talk about the boat again. So this was after one of the fights. We have all 3 of the laser anti-munition defenses up. LAMDS. Defense systems. That's what it is. That's what I've been trying to call it. I've been confused on the name for like a week now. Laser anti-munition system. Defense system. There you go. So yeah, we've got transceivers set up, and we've got 2 more of our specialized little turrets set up as well. We've got one of them directly over the center part of the Citadel, and then one mirrored onto the back part of the Citadel. I've got them on these internalized compartments. Now you might say, why are those heavy armor beams there? I can see a glaring hole where fragments can go through, and the answer is first off, they do stop explosion wrapping, so explosions do not wrap through that gap, and that's primarily why they're there. Second, there's so many layers that things have to get through that there's just not going to be fragments here unless I am severely losing a fight already. So the idea is, somehow if a cram shell makes it through, it probably shouldn't take out my laser anti-munition. That's the theory so far. What else have we got going on? I put a couple of smoke dispensers on the craft. They are pretty much all in the rear. But yeah, if you look at the armor scheme of this thing, there's at least 5 layers of metal, a layer of wood, and a layer of light alloy to get into those internal spaces in total. So Yeah, glancing damage doesn't hurt it. Back to the smoke dispensers. I put them all on the rear of the craft because they do have an anti-munition defense. So the idea is that if I go up against anything with a just overpowering laser, I can turn my butt to them, and then they won't be able to shoot through my butt. At least that's the current operating theory. Most things with powerful lasers are going to be Lightning Hood's craft, and those are fairly mobile, so they might be able to outmaneuver me. We'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, that's just an update on the craft for you. Alright, so we got another Steel Strider's warship. This one has crams. Gonna be honest, I didn't actually know that the Steel Striders had designs with crams, but I mean, here this is. All things considered, it looks like it has these like sideways water paddles, which is very cool. It doesn't stand much of a chance against my Hesh, and what are my missiles doing? Okay, I think I'm pausing it because I saw something in that last volley that I want to point out. All of my missiles were targeting the absolute top of the Citadel. Now, they are radar guided, so the chance of that happening is extremely low unless this thing has powered radar decoys in the top of its Citadel, which is a really cool use of that. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure. We'll see where the next volley goes. Pretty sure I took it out. Honestly, that is if we even get another volley. I haven't fixed the altitude settings on the Bloodhounds yet, so they are still running into each other from time to time. Yeah, I think there was a radar decoy in the top of that Citadel. Very cool usage of it. I fired a lot of missiles, so there's 16 missiles per Bloodhound, so that initial volley of 64 missiles all ended up targeting the top of the Citadel. Well, not all, but the vast majority of them ended up targeting the top of that Citadel. Yeah, very effective. Alright, so what is that? Oh no, that's something from the Scarlet Dawn. Alright, what do we got here? What are you? Let's pause it, let's go take a look. I recognize the silhouette. To me, this looks a lot like the Shooting Star. Now, the APS on this is not really anything to worry about. These are direct input fed 1 meter shells. The side ones aren't railguns. I don't know exactly what they're firing, but I'm not overall too concerned. My craft is pretty Hesh proof, so I don't think there's anything like Hesh and EMP proof. So there's nothing small gauge it could be firing at me that would really make me upset. It's got munition detection, but I don't see any laser defenses. So I'm guessing it probably just has flares somewhere. Yep. Flares there on the inside. A lot of thrusters and whatnot. This thing looks pretty fast. If I had to eyeball it, I'd say around about 140, but it looks like our Hesh is landing. Which spells certain doom for this thing, because it does have shields, and it does have flares, but the cool thing about our Hesh shells is that they're actually really slow. Which means that they have a tendency to just fly straight through shields. Shields are good against very high-speed APS projectiles, but ours are somewhere around, I think, 340 meters a second, which means they actually just go through almost all shields. Yeah, it looks like our missiles can connect as well. The thing is fast enough that when it's at the right angle, it seems to be able to evade most of our fire. The problem that it's going to run into is, once again, it's pathfinding around just its target, which is the carrier. So it is going danger close with no evasive maneuvers relative to the Bloodhounds, which are actually dealing all of the damage. This is one of the reasons why I like carrier craft so much, is because things like this, like the Scarlet Dawn, so often have heavy evasion built into their vehicles, and that just doesn't work if the damage is coming from not the main target of the vehicle. Like the Scarlet Dawn excel at fighting singular, large, powerful craft. They really suck at fighting scattered weapon systems. So yeah, take that, Scarlet Dawn, and thanks for the roundabout 60,000 resources. I'll take it. Alright. Alright, so here we are coming up on the end of the video. Now I feel like I should give you guys a little bit of insight into sort of my my process for doing this and for improving. So basically whenever I publish a video, I go back through like the next day and I watch it and I make a list of all the mistakes that I saw, and then I pick something that I want to drastically improve for the next video. Now, what I've picked this time is I picked the thumbnail. I've decided that the thumbnails I have are, I've been throwing them together in just a couple of minutes, and I haven't really been, they're not high quality, and someone mentioned something about the text, and I just went back through and looked at some of my old thumbnails. They seemed like a good idea at the time, but then you go back and you look at it and you're like, I can't believe I published this. So, my project for this video, and hopefully it'll pay off, is to drastically improve the thumbnail design. So basically I publish a video, I go back through, I make a list of all my mistakes, and then I pick something big that I want to improve on, and then before I edit the next video that I release, I go back through the list of all the little mistakes that I made in the last one, and I try to make sure I don't repeat them, and then I try to have my one major improvement. So hopefully my editing is getting a lot better. Hopefully the quality of the videos is getting a lot better. Hopefully it'll take me less time for better videos. That's the ideal dream. And next up is going to be the sound. I did try to fix the sound in this video quite a bit, but yeah, I'm gonna see if I can record in OBS and move that over to the software that I'm currently using. So yeah, I've been Zacargo, and this has been fun. I'll see you next time with From the Devs.